In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Tonight, our special guest is Dr. Daman Harris. Dr. Daman Harris is an award-winning education leader committed to equity, instructional leadership, and educator development. He co-founded and co-directs the Daman Project, a non-profit supporting the recruiting and retention of male educators of color. His book, The Anti-Racist School Leader, What to Know, Say, and Do, is currently available. During his 30 years as an educator, Dr. Harris has had a wide range of experiences as a teacher, coach, principal, district administrator, adjunct professor, speaker, writer, and consultant. He has received numerous honors, including the 2017 Distinguished Service to Public Education Award from Montgomery County Public Schools and the 2025 Exemplary PK20 Boundary Spanner Award from the National Association for School-University Partnerships. His work continues to cultivate inclusive learning environments, strengthening school-university partnerships, and empower educators to drive meaningful change in schools and communities. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Daman Harris. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Brother King, I appreciate you, man. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm very glad that you're here, especially when we talk about this education, because that's very meaningful right about now.
Oh, man, is it ever?
Is there anything you'd like to add to your bio before we get into the show?
Nah, well, I want to say that I'm also a part of some different organizations that are doing great work. And if I'm getting a second, I'll praise them too. The Rock Creek Foundation is a group where I'm on the board, and we support folks who have intellectual and developmental delays and or persistent and severe mental illness. You can Google Rock Creek Foundation. I think it's rockcreek.org, but I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. You can Google or do the internet search for Rock Creek Foundation, find out how you can get involved. Even if you're not in the DMV, which is where most of our folks are, you can still support in other ways. So we appreciate that. I'm on the board of the Imagination Library in Montgomery County. What we do is we support kids from birth to age 5 by mailing a book a month in that kid's name to that kid's house. So by the time the kid gets to kindergarten, that they could have a home library of 60 books. And that's if only there's one kid in the house. If there's more than one, there'd be more than 60 books in the house by the time they get to kindergarten. So there's a lot of good work going on. You can find us there at Imagination Library of Montgomery County. There are other places too that I know that I'm involved with that I should be saying, and I'm sorry about that, y'all. I don't want to take up all Brother King's time.
No, you're fine. And definitely, at the end of the show, you're more than welcome to give those praises as well.
Awesome.
Let's start with your education and leadership. What early experiences shaped your philosophy as an educator?
Oh, man. So looking back on it now is what I see. And I wrote this in the intro to the book, where I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware. And it's in the Philadelphia metro, and it's a typical inner city sort of upbringing where you think about the stereotypes. A lot of those were true for me. So my mother was 16 years older than me. She had me when she was in 11th grade. My dad was a year older, wasn't doing school thing too tough. Dad stayed with grandma and uncles and aunts and all that whole vibe. And neighborhood came through. I was born in the 70s, so I was a teenager, early teens when crack came through. So it was just a mess. So at that age, at that tender age of 5, 6, 7, a lot of people could have written me off as someone who was growing in poverty, to teenage parents who were trying to find their ways. And the people who didn't write me off were my kindergarten teachers. They, Miss Marie, Jean Folks, Brenda Barner, Niles Mead, Marie Booker, those three ladies were three of my kindergarten teachers who they were from my neighborhood.
Oh,
and
wow.
they just taught us, like me, but also the rest of us in my little crew, that not only, like, they made me feel like I was reading well and writing well at 4 and 5 years old, so that not only was greatness sort of capable with it's within my reach, it was that greatness was expected, coming from where we come from, right? Like that's what they were sending those messages to me. And when I'm on the road, I often share, and I don't have this in my library down the hall, but I don't have a copy of a Charlie Brown dictionary that they gave me when I graduated from kindergarten, and they used that as a symbol to indicate like their belief in me as a reader, as a writer, as a thinker. And I didn't understand at that point what they were doing, but I didn't get that message very often when I left my neighborhood schools.
Right.
And that expectation of greatness, that belief in myself, what I'm capable of doing and what everyone around me is capable of doing, that was instilled in me very, very early by my family and those kindergarten teachers. So I praise them every chance I get, to let them know that what they did for me was a way to show me how I'm supposed to do for others. Now, it took me a while from there to get to the point where I became a teacher, where I became, even when I wanted to get into education. That journey took some detours, but I got there, and I always had the belief in myself, but also in the capabilities of everybody around me, because of those three folks, in addition to my family.
So, Dr. Harris, let me ask you this, because as you hit on that experience of growing up and being a child of young parents, teenage parents. Originally, let's say, like, as you started, into kindergarten and going through school, what was the relationship like with your parents, knowing that it's basically like you all were the same age?
Yeah, so my mother and I, we like to say we grew up together. So I call her mom. She's a dear, like, like anybody else's mom. She's everything to me. Her and my biological children, my wife, like they're everything to me. So my father, a little less so, right? And my mother, we stayed in my grandmother's house with some of my aunts and my uncles, and my grandmother watched me while my mother went to college. So she was able to go to college while my grandmother watched me during the week, make sure I was getting back and forth to kindergarten and preschool. And I would see my mother on the weekends. And so and then a little later, when she graduated, I was around 6, 7. And so we moved around as she was trying to get settled. And so I went to, if you count kindergarten, I was in 4 different elementary schools, 2 different middle schools, and 2 different high schools, right? Like trying to find our way, as a pair moving our way through the world. My father, he was a little more distant, where he tried to see me as much as he could, and he was battling his own demons with respect to substance abuse. And then he later, as we got a little older, as I got to college, He cleaned himself up, and he found God. And it was a little late for him. He had contracted at the time HIV, well, still HIV, but it became AIDS. And at that time, in the mid-90s, it was a death sentence.
Oh wow.
And so
I'm sorry.
that yeah, and so that it really helped shape me in thinking, because he tried, like, once he got his head right, he really tried to pour into me and tried to make connections with me and tried to help me establish relationships with my siblings. And my siblings and I, we still connect, and we're still trying to figure that out as well. But yeah, it was a lot of the stereotype that folks might see. That was a lot of my life. However, the stereotype, I think sometimes what gets missing in that stereotype, unless you see it in movies made by us, right, or narratives created by us, is the love.
Yes.
My father's side of my family, to this day, like, there's still so much love. If I had to turn my phone off, because right now one of them is probably texting me saying, "Hey, I see you, nephew. We love you, nephew. We're proud of you." Like, that is always happening. My mother's side of the family, same thing. Like, so there have always been people around me showing me that I'm loved, not just telling me, but showing me that I'm loved. So I do, my uncles, my aunts and stuff, we almost were peers, coming up.
Right.
And I called my grandmother mom, because that's what everybody around the house called her when I was little. So, but I call my mom as well. But it's our own little language, so we know which one I'm talking about when we are all talking. So yeah, it is, because this is a 90-minute show, man. I'm just going on, man. But like,
you're fine, because I want you to know, just so you understand, that you're not the only one that's been in that situation, because I grew up with my parents, but of course I'm a decade before you. I'm in the 60s, but it was my grandmother that actually raised me as well. So I was just wondering, what was that like for you? Because that was definitely that was some times where you can really know who loved you and who didn't, because family was family then.
Absolutely. And the whole neighborhood was family, right? Like, my mother raised me too. Like, she got out when she graduated from college. I was probably 6 or 7, and I saw her every weekend, one way, growing up. So even while I was little and she was in school, so she did that as well. Her and my grandmother tag teaming, but also all the folks up and down my block. Right. Like, I still go back to my grandmother's neighborhood and sit down, out on the steps and just watch the world go by, and still have people who were, my elders back then, who were still walking the streets, hanging out, walking the block, coming by and smacking me on the head, telling me they're proud of me, saying they heard I wrote some book, or that I went to school and that I'm a doctor now. And like, everybody, one of the folks in my neighborhood said to me, in front of a group of folks, said, I feel like, and it was one of my friends, so I feel like we all got that doctorate.
Yes.
Because we all held you up. Right? We all pushed you in the right directions. Right. So I think a part of some of those lessons, like I was just saying, that unconditional love from everybody around you. This is why I tell folks, like, I love you. You ain't gotta love me back. I love you, and you can't do nothing. Right? You can't do nothing about it. Right? Like, I love you. And I tell my kids, my students that, I tell my staff that, and I mean it. And so those, because folks did that for me. I don't know any other way to be.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Except to spread love. And that's because of the folks who poured into me when I was little, and as I became an adult. And somebody was pouring into me today, right? Trying to coach me up at an event that I had for my day job. Like, yeah, it's been an amazing experience for me to be surrounded with so much love and so much support and so much belief that I now have what I call irrational self-confidence.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Like, I just believe I could do anything, man, because everybody around me have always said that, and I try to do the same. Get the same message to everybody else. I want you to have that irrational self-confidence as well, because we can figure it out together.
Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
know?
sir. I love that. Love that. How do you define cultural responsive teaching in today's classrooms?
It is making sure that you bring, and we're thinking about schools. So I want to make schools more like home, and I want to make home more like school. So in order to be culturally responsive, culturally competent, culturally proficient, any of the phrases, you need to understand the communities and the culture from which your students come. And you need to be able to take elements of those and fit them into the instruction that you give, into the relationships that you try to build, and then into the feedback that you give it, into the materials that you choose. Now, sometimes that stuff can be a challenge because and nowadays there are a lot of us who are using scripted curriculum, right? And that gets tough. But you can still find ways to interject your students' lifestyles, your students' music, your students' food, and like some of those superficial elements of culture that are certainly aspects that are easily recognizable by your students as you making a good faith effort as a person in the classroom or as a building leader, is saying, oh, this person is trying to make a connection. They showed up at church, at my church, or they showed up at my soccer game, or they referenced a certain food or certain use a certain slang, right? That is showing that they are trying to connect to me. But you also have opportunities to make cultural connections that are less easily seen, less obvious. And there are things like your cadence, right? There are things like the way your volume ebbs and flows. There are ways where you have like the way you view personal space.
Yes.
And gender roles. So there are opportunities for you to do things like talk like this when you're talking to folks and have your hands going all over the place. And they're like I do. And they're also, you can also dial it back and fold your hands and have a conversation that's more direct, that's a little less varied in terms of your volume. So there are opportunities to build those in. So the first thing that you have to do is understand you and your culture, because sometimes folks, particularly folks from the dominant culture, sometimes you don't understand that you even have a culture, right? Like it's like, no, I'm just here. Like everybody else has a culture, right? Like everybody else is ethnic. I'm not ethnic, right? Everybody else is exotic. So understand that you're where you're coming from, and then taking time to understand where your students, where your colleagues, where their families are coming from. You can start to build things in to what you're doing in the classroom. So that's how you just have to bring in elements of culture, but it's not just heroes and holidays, right? It is also more than that. It's deeper.
So what challenges have you faced implementing equity-driven practices in schools?
So recently, well, let's in the past, in the recent past, I guess I've had conversations with folks not having an understanding that there are intersectional considerations to this equity, anti-racist, culturally proficient, culturally responsive way of life we try to say we want. So for instance, when I was in school, when I was a principal, I told my staff, hey man, this is what we're doing. We are going this route with anti-racist instruction or any racist posture that we are going to take, we're going to adopt. And I told my parents in the community, I sent letters out and, had some conversations in parent meetings and the like, the whole group parent meetings, say, hey, this is what we're doing. And folks like, hey, I like it. Like, because most of my community at the time were African American, or Latino. And so those folks Like, yo, let's okay, we riding with you, Dr. Harris. We ride like this is cool. Like we like that you focusing on the needs of us, and we're not gonna have just the out like us being treated as the other.
Right.
Right. And so it was awesome. Now, here's where a challenge came because I said, I am also going to make this a safe space for LGBTQ plus folks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Some
I,
folks are like, wait,
I
wait,
can,
wait, wait.
I can
Right? Like,
imagine.
yeah. So you like, I don't know if this is what you're doing, man. Like take it easy.
Mm-hmm.
And the community, the school district where I was at the time, I'm no longer there. I still love that community.
Mm-hmm.
But those folks got together with some other folks and took it to the Supreme Court. Right. So when folks are saying like parents want to opt out of the curriculum, right?
That
Like
new crap that they got going on now.
yeah, that was a part of my school's community. That school district is where I was. When folks said, "Hey man, y'all can't be having these books and like this romance stuff, with homosexual romance stuff going on. Y'all can't tell boys they can wear pink and they can play with dolls in these books. Y'all can't be having books that have puppies going to pride festivals and stuff. Like that ain't cool. You can't have like I rock I started when I was back then rocking my keychain with a rainbow on it, and I'm not queer,
Right.
but people that I love are, and it's cool, but I started adopting that, and then even now, like I'll wear a lanyard or something that may represent a rainbow or have a rainbow there. Folks were like, "Yo, we ain't with that." Right? Like, we ain't with that. What you gonna tell our kids why you wearing a rainbow? I said, I tell the kids the same thing I tell you. It means I love everybody and everybody has a place here. Everybody belongs here. And so that was a challenge. But there was so much goodwill and credibility built up leading up to those types of conversations
Mm-hmm.
that it was easier to navigate than I thought. So that is sort of a like helping folks understand the intersectional sort of piece where everybody thinks like it's their group, right? They have an in group that they're trying to protect. And
Mm-hmm.
what that means is when you form that group around like that little imaginary circle or bubble around the folks you feel like are your in group, that means people it necessitates an out group and people are on the outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we start to view that other as somebody who doesn't deserve the same type of treatment that we have, that our groups deserve.
I got a follow-up question for you on that because I mean I'm still trying to wrap my head around some of that where I really don't like the idea that people that look like you and I really still have this thing about being exclusive and not wanting to just be loving to everyone. Like with the school situation and that situation where you're talking about books and things of that nature. I mean, I don't know. I find it's kind of humorous to me, but I find it sad at the same time because I want to know: did the books really have this kind of material, or was that some implied information that these people were saying was there?
Yeah, I think that the books definitely, some of them definitely made explicit connections. Like there was one book I can't think of the name. This was a few years ago. It was maybe like 3-4 years ago. But it was a puppy who was going to the Pride Festival,
Mm-hmm.
and so like the Pride Festival was explained in that book.
Mm-hmm.
In other cases, there have been books where like kids are going like some kid is a main character, but the kid has two moms or the kid has two dads or something like that, or books that say the like in the Cinderella type of version, but it may be two guys or something or something interracial or something like that. Like
Right.
that stuff is less comfortable for folks because it's not the norm. And so we had conversations like we don't need because and so when the conversations that we have, I try to help folks see like when they put their logic out there, how it might not hold water. Right.
Right.
And it's when they say we don't need to see romance, just teach, right? Just teach my kids how to read. I don't need to see romance. So, well, is it okay to have Cinderella? Yeah, that's a classic. It's romance, right? Like, so if we are saying that we don't want to have romance, okay, like you taking away all romance? No, no Sleeping Beauties, no, whatever's. Well, not like that. But that's romance though. So like then your logic isn't that. There's some romance you don't like, right? So you don't want that. I understand. Um, 20, 50 years ago, folks wouldn't have been able to marry folks of other races.
Yes, exactly.
And people were saying that's not cool. We don't want that in our schools. We don't want that around our kids. 50 years before that, it was just you being in the same presence as somebody, as another group. They didn't want that. They didn't want that. That wasn't the norm, right? That's stuff that people weren't comfortable with. So I just try to help people understand that it really boils down to in-group and out-group psychology and how we all need to belong.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, how has your approach to professional development evolved over time?
It used to be that, well, a couple different ways. So it used to be around content. Let me write that down, make sure I don't forget. So it used to be around content, and it also was around sort of the facilitation. And later, I started paying more attention to the evaluation. Right. And with the content, at one point, it was whatever is hot, whatever is the hot phrases. That's what we need to learn, right? When I first got to school in the 90s, when I first became a teacher, we were talking, oh, we got to have backward design, we got to have writing across the curriculum, we got to have. So anytime somebody asks me some stuff, that's what I need. That's what we got to do. So if you want me to help, I'll help. But that's we're doing the hot stuff. And there are still elements of that that have stayed with me. Looking at what is the hot thing, the cool thing to know, balanced literacy, or I don't know, guided instruction, guided reading. And now, folks are talking about science of reading, science of learning. So there are still elements that I think that have the vestiges of those old ways of thinking about content that I still hold on to. Like I still want to pay attention to the science of reading because that's what everybody's talking about now, the science of learning, brain-based instruction. However, I also know now that we've been doing the hot thing for 100 years, and it hasn't changed the growth of kids that look like me relative to everybody else and the standard one bit, right? Or very little. So I know.
In what ways do you support emerging educational leaders?
A few different ways. So some more or less formal. So during my day job, I am the senior manager for educator advancement and university partnerships. So I work in the division of professional learning. So there are opportunities formally where I mentor new school leaders, or I lead professional learning sessions with current school leaders or veteran school leaders. There are also opportunities where on the side as a consultant and as a contractor that I work one-on-one with leaders, or I go and visit a school district and work with groups of leaders. So like that stuff that is formal. Oftentimes, particularly in the last during my day job, the stuff varies in terms of the content that I get. So sometimes I am helping folks understand more about instructional coaching or how to support folks of color in their buildings, or how to coach, how to be culturally responsive with your responses to students, or maybe it's some instructional practices or instructional rounds and things like that. So all kinds of things that I do in during the day. As a contractor, since this book has come out, a lot of people have more targeted stuff that are a narrower lane. When they ask me to come talk outside of the group or come work with folks, it is often around identity, culture, race, anti-racism, helping folks to build their muscles in those areas. Now, since the book has come out, folks really want to talk to me more about that.
Oh wow! So with you bringing it up, let's transition over to your authorship and your legacy. So, what compelled you to write about educational equity?
It's what I was doing in my school at the time. So at the time, I was a principal in elementary school in the DC metro, and that this is what we were doing. And I'm around so many people who have written books that I felt like why am I why haven't I written mine yet? So this is what I was doing, and I co-lead the Bond Project, and folks can find out about that at bondeducators.org. But I co-lead the Bond Project. It's a nonprofit that supports Black and brown men in education. And in one of the ways we support folks is we had what we called a writer's room, where guys got together and shared their writing or shared their thoughts about their writing, and we gave each other feedback and constructively and more positive. And during that, like one guy was working on a blog that he ended up getting posted somewhere or published somewhere. Another guy was working on a screenplay. I was working on a chapter of this book. And at the same time, an acquisitions editor, which is for folks who don't know, the publishing houses have people who are on the payroll whose sole job is to go out and find new talent and bring them into the fold, bring them into the publishing house. So at the time, a couple of acquisitions editors reached out to me and said, hey, we've seen you on this show talking about this stuff, or we've seen these things you've written. We think you have a book in you. What do you think? And I said, what? I said, I'm in this lane right now where my head is around anti-racist school leadership and my head is around supporting men of color in education, because those are the two primary things I'm doing outside of the day-to-day principal stuff. And we went with the anti-racist school leader. And that's why I wrote this book, because the stars aligned and the universe or the creator all pointed me in the right direction to say in the same direction, saying it's time. And this book, The Anti-Racist School Leader, is like a love letter to my former school. Right? I share what we were talking about at the time when we were trying to make this transition. I share real anecdotes, and nothing made me more proud than when one of my former staff members sent me a text with a screenshot of one of the pages, some passage in the book, and say, I remember that conversation. Right? We had that conversation. And sometimes I say stuff, like I put stuff in there that show where my staff or other folks had to check me, right? Because I was being unresponsive. And I put in there. An example is, like, sometimes folks think about culture and race in different, and as if it's like that's the only way we think about this is black, white, like it's only race and ethnicity. It's a wide range of diverse sort of identities that we all have. And one of them is in the way we interact with each other and the way we process information. And so I used to get on my staff, I used to talk with my staff when we would hire people to say, we are not looking for people who are cultural fits. We don't need to go get people you want to go hang out and have a beer with. We're trying to bring people in to be the best teachers that they can be for our students. We need to bring people in who are cultural adds to what we do. And one of my teachers, a first grade teacher, Amy, said, I won't say her last name because she might not want her stuff said, but she said, Damon, because the way I liked it is people show up, I give them the questions in 10 minutes before they get in. And she said, I think people need a day to think about the questions you give them. And so, well, I don't want that. Like, I want to hear what they have to say right off the top of their head. I want to know what they are thinking, so that way I can really judge what's in their head and heart. And she said, that's not how everybody processes. So you are getting some people's think alouds and not a clear answer that they would be able to have if you gave them time to prepare. And I said, I don't know, Amy. I still think like that I'm most comfortable with this. And she said, well, then it sounds like you want to hire people who are like you. And people who are like you have the advantage, right, in your group. And that really that resonated with me so much so that it's 6 years later, or 7 years later, and I'm still quoting that conversation because I used to think I'm equity guy. I've been doing this equity work for 25 years, right, in one form or another with groups of teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And she caught me just like that. I was like, nah, man, you faking. All right. Like you need to be both like 10 toes in, as folks say, 10
Yes.
toes down on this work. And I could go on, man. Like my staff is pointing out other instances where like, dude, you say you this, or my community, you say you this, but man, we ain't seeing it all the time. You got to be authentic.
So, how do you hope your writing will inspire future change makers?
I'd like, and I just put this in a article I wrote in the journal just recently, that some people need to say words like anti-racism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people need to say words like race, ethnicity, culture, DEI, critical race theory, whatever the other side is screaming about. The other side being, in this case, people who say you can't say those words. Somebody needs to say those words. And I'm comfortable with saying those words, and I'm ready for whatever the ramifications might be. Not everybody can. A book like the one I've written, even though the anti-racist is on the cover, you can still learn strategies to lead your building in a way that makes everybody feel included, and in a way that tries to target the inequities that are going on in your building, even if you were not allowed to say that word in your Alabama schoolhouse or your Texas schoolhouse or your Virginia schoolhouse, or you name the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are still time-tested strategies that you can use. In fact, the other side uses these same strategies,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like these are things that everybody can use. So my hope is that folks take from this that you can understand the way our brains work and use that knowledge in a way that makes everybody feel connected and that allows everybody to grow at optimal levels. Staff, students, and community members that choose to interact with the school building.
Wow.
So I'm hopeful. That's what I'm hopeful of, that folks take this and do more with it and add on to it and write their own books, write their own responses to this, and really keep pushing. Because I like this, for me, I started this in part based on Ibram Kendi stuff, right? Where I was like, all right, this is what we doing. When I read How to Be an Anti-Racist, and he put it really starkly for me. He said, there is no fence to straddle. You are either actively searching out inequities and disrupting them, or you're being racist.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There ain't no
Exactly.
in between, right? And I ain't had that now. I ain't had that understanding before I did that, right? And so I told my staff, said, man, like I'm racist more than I'm not, right? By that standard, I am being racist more than I'm not. And it used to be okay, right, that folks in our building would say that we as a school family would say, I just love kids. And then I say, I could work with that. And I can help you figure out these instructional things because you're going to be committed to these students and their families. I said, I now understand that is not enough, right? Because our students in our building have the students that look like them for generations have been underserved and placed in within the system that is recreating these what I call demographic hierarchies.
Yeah.
So I need you now to say, I'm ready to learn how to disrupt the system. And that's how we're going to support our students.
Mhm.
And now I didn't get that until Ibram Kendi's work. And so I took this and made this fit what I was doing in the school building as a leader. And I hope people do the same thing with my text. They
Mhm.
take it and go somewhere else with it.
So let's transition over to your community outreach. What inspired your mentorship programs for young men of color?
So for me, I think we all have to choose our lanes, right? So I can't do everything. Lord knows I'm involved with way too many things, but we have to choose a lane. And what was helpful to me was I found through one of my colleagues, her name is Dr. Inger Swimson. When she and I were working in the same school district at one point, she was higher ups, in the central office type of worker, and I was less higher up, far less higher up. But she said to me and to some other folks, "Hey, have you noticed the black men in our school district? They come into our school district from other school districts being successful, and they come over here to our district, and then they don't meet with the same success. Have you seen that?" And I said, "Yes, I have." And so the rest, and there were a couple others of us who were feeling the same way. And so she said, let's do something. I said, I'm in. And so we started doing research and writing white papers and talking to different groups and talking to different stakeholder groups. And we said, what we have the capacity to do right now is start mentoring some guys, connecting veteran guys in the system with newer guys in the system. And
Okay.
we can create an informal mentorship program that is created by us, owned by us. We ain't worried about nobody else's policies and practices. We're going to do this because we think it's the right thing to do.
Wow.
And that turned into me learning a whole lot more about the difference between role models and mentors and sponsors and the difference between coaches. And so like all those different elements and how they come into play when you were supporting folks one-on-one or in small groups. And we got from that experience the feedback from the folks who were the mentees and the mentors about what an incredible way for them to grow and feel connected to us as a group, but also to the field of education. And so that had got me to start thinking about how I look at everybody around me, because I wasn't paying attention to who was mentoring me. And I wasn't paying attention enough to who I had the ability to mentor. And
Right.
now, man, it's like when you see the impact, and I know the folks who are listening to your audience, I know they are already mentors. So they know
Yes.
what it feels like when somebody says, I did this in part because of your help.
Yep.
Right. And the way you change the world that way, right? Like I supported a couple of principals who did their first national conference 6 months ago, right?
Mhm.
That was cool. I coached um, an educator to do his first international conference
Oh
two
wow.
weeks 2 weeks ago, right? We did it together, and he and I and a couple other guys, we did it in a way because we with some folks who are in the country, the other international country, like we partnered with them to do it, and then we led some PD with that, and so in Africa, it's just like that stuff, man, that you can do when you are supporting folks. It's nothing like it, man. It's nothing like it. Like it's the same as, especially when you know the exponential effect that will have, right? When that force multiplies, because you are mentoring folks who are now going to go back to their schools of 1,000 or 2,000 people or 500 students, And now they're going to give that to those students, or they're going to give it to their staff, who are going to in turn share with the students. Yeah, so that stuff is just awesome. But what we've also known is that we have to figure out ways to keep guys in their school systems, or to keep guys in the field in general, even if their school system is not the right place to go. And so at the Bond Project, one of the things that we sort of, our theory of action is, if schools were better places for boys of color, then more of them would want to become teachers.
Mm.
And if schools are better places for men of color, then more of us would stay in the profession.
Oh, wow.
So we work towards making schools better places for men of color, so that they stay in the system and some of them want to go. And we mentor boys of color, so that they can see not only is education cool, but the educators are cool, right? And it's a way for them to be a part of the mix and change their communities in a positive way as well, right? In a way that still has them afford a nice lifestyle too. And my lifestyle is good. I'm a teacher. People talk about teachers being broke. I am not. This is a fine way to earn a living.
The one thing that when we had a chance to chat, and I was reading your bio and so forth, and looking at some of the things that you're doing, I want, if you could just tell us, what is the actual premise, the main premise of the Bond Project? Because I think when you guys actually do what you do to help to mentor and to create these men of African descent like us to become teachers, I think, as you say, that is the most important thing in the world, because that changes things. What is the main, tell us, what is the premise of the Bond Project?
So the Bond Project, the acronym BOND stands for Building Our Network of Diversity. And so the Bond Project, we go Bond for short. Bond is a nonprofit full of all volunteers. All of us have day jobs doing something else. So we're a nonprofit that supports any effort we can where somebody or some organization is trying to recruit, retain, develop, or empower Black and brown men in education. So doesn't matter what they're trying to do. If we can help, we do. So in some cases, it is our stuff that we do. So the folks who are connected to us they tell us what they think would be helpful in their professional lives, in some cases in their personal lives. And so we try to provide that. And then oftentimes that looks like either social connections, or some kind of PD of sorts, or it looks like platform support, platform presentation, or opportunities. For example, some of our guys said they want to have a place where they can share their writing. So we created a blog, right? You can find all this at bondeducators.org.
Okay.
But we created a blog. Some guys said they want to do the podcast thing. They want to be guests. They want to get their voices out there, be heard. So we created a podcast. It's called the Bondcast. Guys said they're tired of the gatekeeping that is practiced at these different organizations who are hosting these national conferences. So our voices don't get heard enough, right? They are really sparse in terms of the opportunities that we have. So we created a conference. It's called the Bond Academy. Every spring, we haven't put out the call for proposals yet, but it'll be April 24th through the 26th in Bowie, Maryland, at Bowie State University in 2026. So we create our own, and every session in that academy is led or co-led by a Black or brown man in education. So that voice is centered. Now we want everybody to come there. Everybody's welcome to come, but the voice and the perspective that's centered is that one, right? So like that stuff we do. Guys said we should create a space where boys of color feel supported in schools as well. So we created a mentor program. It's called the Bond Leadership and Learning Institute for young boys, or for young men. So like that stuff is a part of what we do. And we also go out and support where a district may say, hey, we need some support with putting together some data for our folks. Can you support that? Can you support us with that? Or we did some work with the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards recently. They were working on a project that was trying to help diversify the National Board Certified Teacher group. And we are part of a group that was supporting that work. And they pulled us in to support. So those are the loose types of things we do. We also get together informally with guys and say, hey man, we just getting together to go to a basketball game. Anybody who's within shouting distance wants to come to the game or wants to go to the sports bar to do that. We have a book study right now during the summer reading this book, You Deserve to Be Rich. And we're doing that work. We just do anything we can that is supporting efforts to pull more of us in, to keep more of us here, and to help more of us grow.
Oh, wow. I would love to cover that event because that sounds like that's going to be something I think people really need to get to know and listen to as well.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to have you.
How do you build trust when engaging with underserved communities?
I used to think I knew. So I used to, when I changed schools a lot, or, just getting to different spaces, man. I don't know. I never stayed anywhere after my first gig. I never stayed anywhere longer than 3 years in terms of in the same role. And when I would go to a new school, I'm in elementary by focus. Most of my career is in elementary schools. So I would get there and be one of the only Black men in the building. And so I'd be out there at the bus stop on the first day of school or back to school night or something. And a couple parents always come up to me, at least one set of parents or a parent come up and say, or caregiver, hey, we are so glad you are here. Now we have somebody who understands us. I would get that all the time. Then I had a student intern who was when I was in the classroom, and she was Latina. Mm-hmm. And when she got to my room, parents came to her and said, we are so glad you are here. We finally have somebody that understands us. Like, I thought I was super equity guy, right? Like, of course, like I've been doing this work. Like I know what I'm doing. So everybody's going to feel like I'm doing the right thing. And they were like, nah, it's clear this dude means well, but he ain't connecting to us in the way that he thinks he is. And so it took me a while, and I'm still working on figuring out how to build that trust. But the short version of that, and I know your audience is like, dude, you ain't gave the short version of nothing since you've been on this show. But the short version of that, the short version of that is, man, I try to build relational trust, right? And that is, and I do that in my staff, with my staff, or with my colleagues when I go to new roles, or when I'm consulting and I go out, right? You need to show. I put that on 3 elements, and I forgot where I read those at this point, but 3 elements of that relational trust building. So one is that I am committed to the mission, whatever that is that we are working on together. And a lot of times with our communities, I'm committed to your children, and I'm committed to you in this community. So I'm committed to the mission. I'm committed to you individually, and I'm competent, right? And so I try to demonstrate those things with folks while I am there. I want to show them that I know that I'm down for what we're doing together. I'm down for supporting you and your endeavors to make whatever happen. And I know what I'm doing so I can make that happen. So those elements I try to build into everything that I do. Now there's also some softer skills too around demonstrating vulnerability, around giving people voice and autonomy and choice in some of the things that we are doing. So I am not there. I use Lisa Clark from National Board of Professional Teaching Standards shared this quote with me that I use now on a regular basis when I'm talking to groups about such things. She shared a quote from a lady named Lilla Watson, who's an indigenous educator of sorts in, I want to say, Australia or New Zealand. And she uses her quote, she's quoted as saying, oh, I'm going to paraphrase because I ain't going to get the exact quote. If you have come to my community to save me, kick rocks. I don't need that. Right. But if you have come because your struggle for liberation is bound with mine, then let's get to work. Right. So I don't come to any new community saying I am here because I gotta save the Title I babies, and that's why, like, what are they gonna do? It's me or death. I ain't here for that. Right. I'm here because I need to make growth happen.
Yes, sir.
And you families need to make growth happen. So I'm driven by that, and you are driven by that. So let's get to work, right? And I'm showing you I'm committed, and I know what I'm doing. So let's move.
So, what systemic barriers have you worked to dismantle through your outreach?
Sometimes it's there's it, yeah, I was thinking, but is it pretty simple? I think the behaviors are not complex or not complicated. I think some of the thinking behind some of those, like changing things or why behaviors happen, is complicated or complex, maybe not complicated. So, for instance, when I was a principal, so I'm going back again to like me and my staff from telling me that I need to change my ways sometimes. So we were talking with my staff we were talking with one of our parents, and the parent was Asian and was an Asian immigrant and wanted to hold the student back. And we said we don't want to hold the student back. And I'll tell you why I'm saying it's Asian in a second. It's salient. But said we wanted to hold our child back because we don't feel like the child is progressing enough. And during that conversation, my team and I said, "Hey, how about this? How about we work with your child over the summer and just give this child one-on-one support a couple times a week through one of the folks on our staff throughout the entire summer, and then we come back and see where the skills are and knowledge is by that time, and then we can determine whether or not the student should be held back to repeat the grade." Parents said fine. So now in my school, it was Asian students didn't make up a large percentage of the population, maybe definitely fewer than 4 or 5%, maybe in like 2 or 3%. So I went upstairs and I said, I'll bring some books to the house. Family left, and I went upstairs to our book closet to go get books. And it took me over 45 minutes to find a book on that child's level with an Asian main character.
Oh, wow.
So now I ain't had that many books, right? Like for it to take that long to do that. And I think I only had one. Right. And this is a guy who's writing the book. Well, at the time I wasn't writing the book, but like I hadn't started that stuff yet. But like that stuff was like, yo, man, we've been doing this equity stuff for a minute. But we haven't put in place an auditing process to make sure that our kids are represented in the work that we are doing. Why would that kid feel like that kid feel like that kid should be a reader? Right? Like that stuff. So now putting the auditing process in place so we can go back and take a look at our books and see what do we need more of or less of in our spaces. So like stuff like that are the types of things that are not complicated. We just need all this stuff. But it can be complex. We start to think about, well, why are we not? And what now becomes a part of the audit and stuff like that. Yeah. I think also we've gotten places to think, to use words like racism up until the last 8 months. So we have gotten people to use words like equity, racism, race, culture, and build those things into policies and practices, but or policies and regulations. I, we were part of the groups that were suggesting such things, I suppose. But yeah, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head other than those types of small pieces. We've had folks say, hey, we now are adopting some of your practices to support the work we're doing in our school district, even though it wasn't me directly that said, do this exact thing. It was me that said to a group of principals, or to, in some cases, I'll meet with in smaller districts, maybe like 700 teachers. I may meet with everybody in the district and talk about some of this work and lead them through some things. And so folks will say, we now can have these kinds of conversations because you've opened the door and explained some of the vocabulary and the reason why it's been less comfortable for some of us to have these conversations. So breaking the ice in that way has been gratifying as well.
So let's talk about some of your entrepreneurial vision. What motivated your journey into educational consulting?
I saw back in 2000, the 2001 school year, I was sitting in a meeting where, in a conference room, some school meeting, like school leadership team type of meeting, and principal or assistant principal always deferred to the principal. Principal always deferred to the folks in central office. Like, hey, we got to hear what the folks in central office say is the way we're supposed to be teaching and the way kids are supposed to be learning. Okay. Even like, not, they override me, they override this principal, they override the principal, and they get this person.
Right.
Our central office, instructional specialists, whatever you call them in your district. One day, a consultant came, and this person overrode, like, the central office staff person deferred to this person. Oh. And I was like, I don't even know this person, right? And like, I don't know this person's expertise. This person said, I got a bunch of research, and this person put down some stuff that was not research. It was commentary on research, right?
Oh, God.
And I said, okay, like, is this what we doing? Oh, okay. Like, I got it. Like, I got it now. Like, so what I need to do is figure out a way to get myself in a space where these people are looking at me like this. So,
right.
So I during that very year, or the following school year, I applied for a doctoral program. Mm-hmm. It's time for me to do this work. And so in that way, I had already been leading PDs, like after school professional development through my school district stuff related to equity and race. And so I just kept doing those kinds of things. And then more and more folks just kept saying, hey, I know somebody who could use help that you have. And it's gotten, well, things were ramping up, and then we hit this backlash, man, this wave of anti-racism stuff. So it's been really tricky to have conversations with folks. We use phrases, you don't even use phrases like equity in some places. They're not even allowed to use those words. So we talk about other words you can use. Mm-hmm. And try to still be helpful and still figure out ways to do the work to make everybody feel connected, students, staff, their caregivers. But it is more challenging now, and I'm still trying to figure that out. And so I still have a day job. I still have multiple nonprofit boards on which I sit to try to support. Like, the money's nice. But it's really, like, I do a lot of things pro bono. because I just want this stuff to grow. I just want people to grow. I want to change the world, and money doesn't have to come with that. So any of your folks, any of the audience who's out there, holla at me, and if you're like, hey, especially if it's someplace I ain't never been, yeah, if I ain't never been there, and you got an interesting place, holla at me. I'm coming for free. I'm coming for free.
I hear you.
Definitely zoom some stuff, man, because like this work is too important for folks to feel like they don't have the help that they need.
You know, I'm going to tell you something. You know, as you say that, I mean, you're 500% right, and I agree with the things that you're doing as well as the principles and the premises, you know, for what it's supposed to do and how you want to make it work. I know that culturally, especially here in this country, you know, since, you know, we had this evolution that's basically trying to transform the 21st century into the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
And so as that's happening, we know, and I don't think it takes a rocket science, but there are some people that primarily still haven't caught on yet, that if they do what they're trying to do to the Department of Education by banning these books, telling you can't talk about equity and inclusion, telling you that you can't tell this story, or telling you that in order for this to be what we call school, it has to have, this is what it looks like, and you just have to accept that.
Yep.
Now, I don't get. Well, let me ramp this down a little bit, because I know that it's not everybody, but I'm sure that there are more instructors, teachers that are in the position as you that should be thinking more of the same thing that you're thinking, instead of just saying, well, I just want to get by.
Mm-hmm.
Does wanting to just get by really means that you're okay with the majority of whatever is culturally right about what this world or this country is about needs to be repressed? Or just saying, okay, well, that's just out of my hands? Where is the fight? Where is the real fight?
So I think a couple of different thoughts come to mind when I think about a response. So one is our folks, and I don't just mean Black folks, but like folks who are about this liberation work.
Mm-hmm.
Our folks have always been also capable of closing the door in their classrooms and saying, we're doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Jarvis Givens wrote the book Fugitive Pedagogy, and where it outlines a lot of those processes that were taking place in the 19th century. I guess maybe it was the early 20th century. Yeah, that stuff was happening. So I think our folks are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I also think I was talking to Roy Jones, who created the Call Me Mr. program down there in South Carolina in Clemson, where they created one of the first pipeline programs for Black men in education.
Mm-hmm.
And he was being recognized for his accomplishments, and we were at the same event. I wasn't being recognized for my account. I ain't done nothing like he's done. But I was talking with him, and he said, the folks in this generation, folks my age and younger, I'm in my 50s, or my early 50s, my age and younger, we haven't had to face the same types of struggles that some of our parents and our grandparents and great grandparents have. So we haven't exercised those muscles ever. So it's hard for us to understand what to do just yet. And so a lot of us, while it appears that we are slow to respond, we are just figuring out like how we are just building these muscles so that we can be prepared to help make the changes that are needed. But it just may look a lot like watching a plant grow, right? Where it doesn't look like it's flowering right away because the roots are growing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So folks are doing this. I hope.
Well, I can say this. I do understand that nothing happens overnight, but well, I guess what the way I probably should have said this in the beginning is that we saw this writing on the wall 15 years ago. This was writing on the wall 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for what was in place then, if there was no action to even start something rolling then, so the process now is definitely going to be slow.
Yeah.
So what that means, and I guess maybe in just putting it out into the atmosphere, we've got to be able to do something to cripple this thing and knock it off kilter, knock it off key, knock it off line, whatever you want to call it, to take up some time. If it's a year, if it's 2 years, you got to knock this thing offline, because if it's not knocked offline and if it continues, especially if we get through into the beginning of 2026, there is no Department of Education, there is no equity, there is no race, there is no nothing. Everything is white.
So I am optimistic that
So am I.
won't be the case.
So am I.
So, but I also I'd add that I I think that we have to come to grips with, or we have to understand how our political leaders of all sides, they use what they know about the way the brain works, and they use psychology to keep us, to help them amass more power.
Mm,
And so when they all they need to do is point you at at a other and say that's the cause of your problem, not that person. That thing is the cause of your problem, right?
mm,
And then we move to our political leaders. They get more power. We give them more power so they can do something wrong to those others. And
mm.
until we begin to recognize, this is part of what I write in the book, this in-group, out-group stuff, like this psychology is like we all want to belong to something. And we've been socialized to believe, like the human brain is hardwired. We have no choice but to want to belong. We all want to belong. And so what we've been hardwired, or we've been socialized over the last 500 years to believe that race is the primary thing that needs to tie us all together. So if that's the case, now folks will say, well, if as long as my race, I'm going to stick with my race. And our politicians can point to the other and say, then that other one, they're the ones that deserve less. They're the cause of your problem. And we got to fight against them. If we can get our folks to recognize that, because what we did then is, like, our folks on one side, particularly the white supremacist side, I'm just call it that, whether I call it, they calling it whatever the other label is, the white supremacist side, those folks, they're ready to give up democracy.
Right.
So their group can win and sustain. And
Right.
some of them are upset and saying, because they don't recognize that their politician, their political leaders, particularly one, he ain't really about the race, right? But he's trafficking in that to amass more power.
Yep, that should say right there.
Yeah, and until, like, when we help folks see, but we can't get to them by saying, you're wrong. Don't you see you're wrong? The brain doesn't work that way. We double down on that, right? They get defensive. So we have to help each other understand that there are so many more things that connect us. We have so many more things in common than we have that divide us, that separate us, that think differently. But we just don't. We let our politicians, like, keep that wedge there, so that other is there and we can vote. Man, I was just reading something recently I put on LinkedIn that I found that I saw. We are hardwired to want revenge on the other. We get bigger dopamine drips in our brains. Those are the same endorphins about love and eating chocolate and all this other stuff. Like, we get a bigger drip when we think about the other group. Bad things happening to them. And if we can just, because what we didn't understand on the other side, like folks that for me, I'm a little more liberal. I'm not. I'm an independent, so I ain't really buying into either one of these groups.
There
But
you go.
but we are thinking that we have it all together because we're Big Tent. Nah, man, because folks over here, some folks who are black, they cool with like, yeah, we can vote for some black people, but not a woman. Right?
Yeah.
We'll keep black folks. We gotta stick together. But now I ain't vote for no gay people.
Mm-hmm.
Like we got like so we all still finding the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not finding commonality. And that's the work. Is
Mm-hmm.
helping folks to see. Like in the book I write and I ask and I try to suggest some activities to help folks to see how they can build bridges and help the people in their school community think about the primary thing that keeps us all together is not race. The primary thing that keeps us all together can be this school community.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in this is in our in group, and
Right.
everybody on the outside is the other. Right?
Yes.
We have to fight for us in here. Right. And that's what we're trying to get. Even in conversations with my friends and family, when we have these types of conversations, we can't just keep throwing rocks at the other side. We got to be together in this.
Right. So when I reached out to you and I was asking you who was the most influential person in your life in your career when it comes to Black history, and you mentioned your mother and her guidance that she introduced you to Kunjufu, Browder, and W.B. Du Bois. So can you describe the kind of wisdom and values your mother instilled in you that still guide your work today?
Yeah, my mother's name is Karan Duncan,
Mm-hmm.
and she had still like I still keep a bunch of books all over surrounding me because she did.
Mm-hmm.
And books that were on the coffee table were books like the Browder Files, or I don't know, one of the Kunjufu books like the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys or one of them. I don't know if that one was the one, but like those types of books from Du Bois, Maya Angelou, you like Bell Hooks, just folks just had these books are just on the table, saying like we sitting here, she's reading something, so then I'm gonna read something and she's gonna ask me about it, and we're gonna talk. And I mean, I can't remember a time from the time I was 7-ish, like where, particularly when we first got like our own place, like
Mm-hmm.
where there weren't books around that were Afrocentric, right, or at least focused on Black people. And so it was just always a thing. There wasn't a let's wait till February to have a conversation thing with us, right? So it was always there, and so I'm still that way to this day with my own children. And when I was a school leader, I had staff members say once, "Hey man, we need to do more for Black History Month."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm cool with that. Can you also do more? Like we don't got to wait till February. It's April right now, right?
Exactly.
Let's do it right now. Right. And
Exactly.
same with folks who are Latino or folks who are Asian. Like let's get let's do it for everybody. That's here. Everybody needs a space in here. So I attribute that to my mother saying, "Yeah, you're a good reader, but a reader is only as good as the content that they consume." And yeah, her stuff was on point. And she still like I don't read much fiction, but she still does. And she and my wife now, my wife and I have been married 29 years. And she and my mother still go back and forth talking about the different books that they're reading, or they read the same books and talk. Because it's just been a part of who we are as a family.
So, what moment in your upbringing made you realize your mother was shaping your path as more than a parent, but as a visionary and an influence?
It was, so she's always been somebody that I follow, right? Like, so, I mean, because like I said, we grew up together, and we started moving around once she got out of college, undergrad. We started moving around. She was trying to find herself like that. You know, she said, "Hey, man, it's me and you against the world. So, like, no matter where I am, you are going to be on my hip. I don't care how old you get. No matter where I am, you're going to be on my hip." So, like, that's always been the case. And so I don't remember a time when I didn't know that she was my North Star, right? Where so I just think that that's just what it was forever. I think there was a time when, and I don't think I've ever shared this before with any public audience, but there was a time when she said, we were having a conversation, as a big family conversation, and in my family, I'm sure like a lot of others, we ain't raising our hands to talk, right? Like, so we got like 7 different conversations going amongst 5 people or whatever. Like, there's a bunch of us in the dining room talking and stuff. And I was talking with one of my uncles, and we were arguing about something. And my mother said to my uncle about me, she said, "Hey, listen to the man. He's making some sense, or he's making some good points or something." And that was the first time I had remembered my mother ever calling me a man.
Mm.
And it was earth shattering. Like, at that point, I knew, like, all right, like I done right by her. Right. Like she, like, in that moment, it felt like we were just holding hands through life. Right.
Right.
And she like let me go, like, all right, it's time for you to cross the street by yourself. Like, it was like that type of feeling. And so I can't remember a time when she wasn't the North Star, even to this day.
Oh, wow. How did Quran's introduction of thinkers like Kunjofu, Browder, and Du Bois open your mind to education beyond the classroom?
We weren't learning stuff like this in school.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that. Like, this is real stuff. Like, one of my brothers, Daquan Gibson, is a pastor, and he says on a regular basis, man, you got to search a long and hard to find somebody who wasn't black in the Bible, right? Like, a black or brown, and so, like, and reading that content as a young person, and then sort of juxtaposing that to what the messages I was getting from school and from like cinema, it was essential for me, and I didn't know it at the time, right? To really, it really helped me become more of a critical thinker.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't taking much of anything at face value. It was really about, okay, what's this person saying, and where else can I find corroborating evidence for this? And so being around, it was almost as if, and right now, it's funny, Tony Browder is, I'm part of a collective of hosts called, host a radio show called You Must Learn on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. on WPFWFM.org. It's public radio here in DC. But Tony Browder is he's a host on the radio show, not the same show I'm on. But like that, these people felt like real people. They felt like my contemporaries, even though these are great thinkers. But I felt like I was in the room with them when these books were on the table and I was reading one or more off and on. And so I think that's really what it's been. Like, I think the premise of iron sharpening iron, and only, I one of the things I like to say is I only hang out with people who inspire me, right? Like, those books were inspirational for me, and those folks were iron on which I was trying to sharpen my own thinking. And I think that them being around is almost like friends being around, and having conversations and sort of jousting with me.
Can you recall a specific teaching or quote from one of those leaders that your mother emphasized and how it impacted your perspective?
No, so I can't. Um, but because I don't know, it's been like I don't know what stuff are proverbs or what stuff was from a book in particular or
Mhm.
what. And radio show we just had a Jawanza Kunjufu 4-hour special show that we hosted on his birthday. Dang, but no, I can't think of a quote at all um, that comes to mind other than the standard proverbs that we were saying, like the closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Mhm.
Um, those types of things. One of the things that, and I don't think it came from one of them, but life is hard. It's even harder when you're stupid, right? So exercise, good judgment at all times,
Mhm.
even when you think nobody's watching, right?
Mhm.
But man, I wish I was prepared with a quote. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now.
That's no problem. How did your mother navigate conversations about race, leadership, and legacy while raising you? And how did that prepare you to lead others?
So one of the things that she and my grandmother said often is do as much as you can for as many people as you can for as long as you can. Right. And I saw that in the way my mother carried herself. My mother was on the boards of nonprofits. She was working, volunteering in the community. She's heavy in the church. Her and my grandmother still Sunday school teachers. Like in the church I grew up in, they that emphasis on giving, and pouring into the community is just a part of who she was, and she made it a part of who I am. And it's cool. My oldest is now he's following those footsteps where he got his first real job out of undergrad, but he's also spending his weekends volunteering for a nonprofit at Sandy Spring Slave Museum out in Sandy Spring, Maryland. Y'all to come visit that too. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's been cool to see the generational sort of trickle down of the need to continue to give back.
So, in what ways do you see her influence echoed in your own mentoring, speaking, and advocacy work today?
She taught me or told me some of the time, showed me, I guess is a better way to say it, is that you can't go in to these two relationships thinking you're going to change folks, right? But you can go into relationships thinking that you can help make other folks' lives better,
Mhm.
and that is a way that you can change the world. Right? And I wanted to change the world. I still do want to change the world, particularly for folks who are trying to figure things out, like I'm trying to figure things out. And I got a lot of that sentiment from my mother.
Last question. Do you remember how you first reacted to reading authors like Du Bois or attending events like events that your mother brought you to, and what shifted for you?
So, she when she would go to different spaces, or even I would go, and people would we look a lot alike, and people would say, "Oh, you Ronnie's son, your mom, she did this thing that affected my life in a positive way." And I'll go somewhere else. They say the same thing. she did this thing. Your mom did this thing that affected my life in a positive way. Or I'm with her and we walk into some room and somebody comes from some other place and wants to just hug her and say thank you for some things she did a while ago, or said, hey, I got this issue. Can you help me with? Can you help me resolve it? She was doing that stuff. And now I see in myself that some people are doing that with me now. And I really feel like I'm doing right, because I see people treating me now the way people treated her then when I was younger. And it's cool that my children now see that as well. Like, hey, people see you in a way that says you are supporting the community. And they're proud of me like I was proud of my mom. And I hope this legacy moves forward in that way.
So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom, encouragement that you'd like for our audience to know, as well as how to connect with you on social media, your websites, or some of those other things that you'd like for them to know about?
Copy that. So, getting in touch with me first. So it's Daman Harris, or Daman, Daman. You can think of me as Daman, right? Like, so Daman at damanharris.com. That's the email. You can go online and go to damanharris.com and you'll find out more about me there. DamanHarris. What you don't go to the contact me portal on the webpage because it's broke. The link is broken. So that's why I said, if you want to get in touch with me, go ahead and email me, Daman at damanharris.com. And you can find out more about the Bond Project, bondeducators.org online, or you can go on social media at Bond Educators. I am most active on social media on LinkedIn. I'm staying away from X as much as I can. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Daman Harris. I think I'm the only one, so you'll be able to do that. The book, The Anti-Racist School Leader, What to Know, Say, and Do. I'd love for you to get it and come talk to me about it. It'd be awesome. In terms of last piece of advice that I might leave folks with, it is to recognize that these issues are complicated, but you are only by yourself insofar as you choose to be. There are a number of people who are in this audience, but a number of people around the world who are thinking about issues the same way you are, who are trying to work these things out, and they stand ready to work with you. There's a number of organizations who are doing these, like having these kinds of conversations, who stand ready to meet with you and connect with you and try to help think these things through. You are not alone in the way that you think.
So, Dr. Harris, I want to thank you again for spending some time with us, and I have to ask you, will we be able to get you back on the show again?
Absolutely, I'll be glad to talk. I'll give you more time to talk the next time.
Well, I want to thank everyone that's watching the show. Because I think what Dr. Harris was just mentioning are some things that's of concern for an enormous amount of people. And so as we go to attack these issues, because we want to get ourselves wrapped around them in order to corral them, in order to get them in order the way they should be. I think the one thing that he mentioned is one thing that's very, very, I think, plausible and something that should happen, is that we should do all this together. If we don't do it together, we'll find ourselves outside looking in and wondering, excuse my French, but what the hell happened? And when you're asking that question, then you got to wonder, what did I not do?
Yeah, that's that saying. I don't know if it was Elie Wiesel or who it was, but said when they came from my neighbor on the right, it wasn't my business, so I ain't do anything. I ain't help at all. And then they came from my neighbor on my left. It wasn't my business, so I ain't help at all. And when they came for me, there was nobody left to help me.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're in this together, whether we want to be or not. It doesn't matter. We are.
And so this is something that we should all be working on right now. Let's build these communities. Let's work together and let's make this one big unified situation that we get control of these situations. For those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel, if you have not yet subscribed, please lend us your support. And please hit the subscriptions button as well as getting all of the notifications, because you'll be able to catch the shows live, as well as go and watch all of the previous recorded shows and get all of this wonderful education that these leaders have provided for you here on America in Black and White. So for those of you that have watched, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you again, Dr. Harris. Please join us again tomorrow night for another exciting show, one that's going to be filled with knowledge as well. And you guys have a great night. And we will see you tomorrow night on America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas